Hey, sports card fans, it's John, Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. It's time for another update on the Vintage 100 Index, and I'm joined, of course, with my sidekick, Mike, baseball collector, probably one of the busiest YouTubers in the sports card community. Mike, I guess this is the second one you're doing today. Have one or two more to do with people, so I don't know how you do it, but thank you for joining me as usual on this fun journey that we started probably 4 or 5 months ago now.
Yeah, it's been a blast. This is one of the things I make sure I do because I feel like it's your deal. I'm the Robin to your Batman. I'm the boy wonder in this equation, but it feels like a perfect fit for what I love, what you love, the numbers, all of that stuff. And as we're going through, there's some interesting, it's interesting to look on a monthly basis and just kind of, okay, where are things, and kind of give people an idea.
Yeah, and we don't propose to have all the answers. There's a couple trends we're going to show off here with the data, and I don't know what the reason behind it is. I have some theories. You may have some theories. Other people may have some theories, or we may just say it's just a couple cards influencing the index, and that's how it affected the whole thing. So with that, how about we get right into looking at the data? Now, again, we say this is for September, but this is the data through the end of August. So we have the vintage index. Again, this is pretty much the average price of the 100 cards that we have in the index. And it stood at $1,296.98. And that is down from a revised, and I'll speak to this in a second, revised 1,354.51 from August. And I say revised is, we don't collect the data on September 1st and look at, say, August data. We give it, a week or two. We end up doing these videos maybe around the middle, third week of the month. But invariably, we use vintage card prices, and sometimes some very late end of the month sales get put into their database. And as we look at updating prices for the current month, we look back and just to make sure, and on occasion, and this is another month an example, there were maybe 3 or 4 that we noticed a very end of the month sale. So we updated that data. So it is a revised August index. And compared to September, that month over month was down a little over 4%. Again, not huge monthly changes, which we've seen, I'd say, Mike, over the last year in terms of the data.
Yeah.
But whenever we do these videos here, I try to take a slightly different look at the data so it's just not monotonous. And so I took a look at, okay, how did the 100 cards for September do compared to August? So compared to August, there were 37 cards that went up for the month, 44 went down, and 19 were unchanged.
I love that you did that, by the way. Love it.
Again, it goes back to, not that I'm really into stocks, but it's that I used to follow the stock market and different things like that. And, sometimes they have different sectors. Hey, this sector was up and this sector was down, or so many stocks, whatever. So since the beginning of the year, the index is up slightly. It's pretty much held steady, 2% up. Since we started the data back in 2019, those 100 cards, the index there is up over 150%. So again, long term, you still see the effect of vintage cards. Now, again, we had that big spike and it's come down a bit, but overall, and again, as we continue to do this, just like the stock market or anything that's traded, you're going to get your highs and lows, but looking at it for a longer time frame, that's when you can really tell in general where things are going. And vintage cards are definitely holding their own and increasing in value long term.
It allows you to see trends, right?
Yeah.
The longer you look, you can trends start to manifest themselves in the data.
Yep. All right, so let's go to the specific chart. So we'll look at the Vintage 100 Index chart here, and as you can see, it was down slightly for, again, the data from August. Um, but it's been a little bit of a wave. But again, since probably looks like December, November, say October of 21, it's been within a fairly decent band. Gone down a little bit, maybe, slightly off, say in October. But if you take that trend line again from the beginning of 2021 and get rid of that crazy spike, you can see a gradual increase, a slow, steady increase in this case, these 100 particular cards, which I think if we could to go back even further in the data, I think we would see that continued trend, just a slow, steady. Vintage cards don't have, except for maybe that 52 Mickey Mantle, the huge hype that some of these modern cards and the new rookies and people speculating to get these wild um, prices and jumps for some of these cards. Vintage is vintage. Vintage has been around. The players have been retired. Most of them have been passed, or passed. So not much to talk about.
I think it'd be interesting to see, and maybe next month we try to do this where we just segregate maybe from April or May of 21 to now
Mhm.
and put a linear regression line in there. I bet it's
Yeah.
going to be incredibly flat. If you in it, what a linear
Yeah.
regression line is it's just it's basically the middle of all the points,
Mhm.
and it can show you a trend up or down. It'd be cool to see the linear regression line from the beginning to now, and then at different periods,
Yeah.
um, it just tells you kind of direction, up, down, right? I think it'd be pretty flat, which is not surprising.
Yep, yep. There, I may need some technical help from Robin, but we'll work on that.
Or
But I
Mike.
I know the theory. I just need to we'll
Mike
figure out
can
the
do it.
numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's again the general 100 index. Now we've been for the last couple months breaking down the decades because there's differences between the decades in terms of the value of the cards and the impact that it has on the overall index. So for the 1940s, we actually see an increase for the month. And in fact, if I can read my notes here without my glasses, the 40s saw about an 11% increase for the month for those
Nice.
19 cards.
Okay.
So one of them, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was the 49. This is going off of memory here. I think the 49 Bowman Pee Wee Reese, which hadn't sold in quite some time. There was a sale, and it went up fairly, again, relatively speaking, fairly substantially, which may have something to do with the 40s seeing an increase for the month. The 50s, we saw a little bit of a dip. Now, here, the 50s tend to be impacted a lot by the 51 Bowman Mantle rookie, the 51 Bowman Mays rookie, and a couple other, you got the Aaron
Clemente,
rookie in there and, all
Clemente,
that stuff.
Koufax. Yeah, you got some
Yep.
big boys there.
So yeah, 50s tend to be, and again, I don't want to say it's a fault of the index because you can't discount the other decades, but the main driver of the index that we've been seeing this trend here is the cards from the 50s. And for this most recent month, there was a significant decrease in the selling price of the 51 Mantle, but an increase in the 51 Maze. So I think we've been seeing the Mazes cards just across the board, just conceptually, still being strong and maybe a slightly higher interest in his cards. Um, and the Mantles, so much on condition there, and so that it could just be an issue of condition with the drop there. But yep, we saw a decrease there a little bit. The decrease was about 7% down.
Okay.
So 1960s, again, a little bit of a decrease. That was down by 7%, the cards from the 60s. But if you noticed, the 60s didn't really have that spike that we saw in early 2021. It was, the 40s and to a great extent the 50s. So the 60s have been pretty stable for close to 2 years.
Yeah.
now. So let's go to the 70s. 70s again, no real big spikes there. Obviously, this is the lowest impact on the index in terms of price swings. Again, we saw there for the month, the 70s were down about 10% from the previous month. And that's the third month in a row, and probably 4 out of 5 months that we've been seeing a small decline there in 70s cards, at least the ones that make up the index. So let's go to the combined one here. Again, it's just a way to, in one visual aspect here, to take a look at the different decades and to see the impact of it. Obviously, the larger graph there is the 50s, and that tends to pull up or push down the index, generally speaking. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any general thoughts on this graph here, Mike, when you take a look at all the different decades, but
No, I think you're just going to see continued movement among the decades. I don't, you'll, rare, I think you'll see where they're all up. I think it's just like it's stock market, you're not going to see a certain sector. Let's
yeah.
break these decades down into sectors. Not
Mm-hmm.
every sector is up all the time.
Right.
And of course, you're always going to have a few key cards that matter in a price weighted index,
Yeah.
and so if they're affected, to a greater degree, this is the kind of stuff you're going to see, but nothing's moving crazy. So,
No.
I think that's good. That's good for the market. Stable is good. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want crazy. I
Yeah.
think stable for the vintage market is the status quo, is the normal. That's what we want. We just have a new normal. As you can see, the levels are just higher, right?
Yep.
But we're establishing and well established into a new normal range, I think.
Yeah. I think you can look at this as, say, the 1950s in terms of the stock lingo would be large cap stocks.
Yeah, or mega
And
cap.
then you got the
Yeah.
70s is maybe some small cap, moving here and here. You may get some high percentage jumps, but we're not talking big dollar changes and things like that. But the trap that I seem to fall into every month, and I have to stop myself, is looking at this index from a month to month. In preparation of this, I sent you some questions of, why do you think that, the index went up for August, which is the July prices, but then down in September for the August prices? And I'm thinking to myself, well, does it have to do with the national and this and that? And I got to stay away from that, because I think the purpose of this index not necessarily is to look at the month by month change, even though that's what we're reporting on. But each month that we do this is another data point to look at the overall data sets that we've put together and see general trends, and not try to figure out why the index moved up or down for a particular month. Because as we said here, it could be 4 cards out of the 100, and maybe some from the 50s impact the index, and has nothing to do with the other, say, 95, 96 cards. So I got to stay away from trying to figure out, hey, why did this move up or down for this particular month, and just concentrate on the long-term analysis.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Before we get, okay, but that's fine. So what, again, every month I try to look at the data here and, pull some things out and just take a look at some of the card data, individual card data, and just see if there's any interesting trends or information that we can talk about. So it may have been last month or the month before that, we talked about the pop reports for the cards in the index, and how some of them, the pop for the particular grade, the collector grade, is under 100. So there's not a lot of potential activity. So I thought it would be interesting to look at the top 10 cards in the index in terms of the most pop for that particular grade. So just to see what the trends are and
Okay.
see if there's anything interesting from it. And there was one thing interesting from the year to date data. I don't know what it means, but we'll take a look here. So number 10, now this population, Mike did looked up the pop reports on all 100 cards back in June. Obviously, there have been since then, I'm sure, some additions to the pop reports for all the cards. But generally speaking, I just went off of the June data. Maybe at the end of the year, we'll update it again. I don't think we need to do it on a monthly basis.
Johnny Bench.
But
It's Johnny Bench.
hello, Norman. How are you?
It's Johnny Bench. He's awesome. Best catcher ever, according to people. Yeah.
That's well, that right there is going to get us views on this video here. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Norman. Always love to see an appearance by him.
He takes a 5% royalty for showing up.
Okay. Well, yep. I'll talk to his agent.
Right.
So number 10 here, we have a pop of 1,800 for the Johnny Bench rookie card. And year to date, the card's down about 5.5%. But since January of 2019 has seen a pretty healthy overall increase of, a little over 180%. And there's the little chart there that shows that, there was that spike in the beginning of 2021. But for the most part, that spike has sort of stayed up there. I mean, you didn't see a pullback in a quote unquote new norm. That new norm is close to the spike that we saw at the beginning of 2021. So that's an interesting particular card there in that grade that sort of bucked the trend.
I think when you get to these 60s cards like this, John, I mean, we're talking about, let's say, between 300 and just under 500. So you got a couple $100 swing, and that could easily be a couple things. Number one, I think this card was criminally underrated in the hobby, underappreciated in the hobby for a really long time, right?
Yep.
And the second thing, and it always took a backseat to the Ryan rookie, right?
Yeah.
And then I think also with these, you're going to see, if you're talking about a PSA 6 for a 68, there can be a wide variety of conditions within a 6, right?
Yep.
And so I think what we see here, and again, we only show the last sale, right? Not every sale. And so, or an average of even every sale in the month, because this is a card that trades a lot. And it's a lot of data points. But the point is, I bet those fluctuations we're seeing month to month, the kind of $100 to $150 ups or downs are generally probably attributed to the condition of that 6, not necessarily the popularity of this card. If that makes any sense. I think
it absolutely does. And again, it's one thing to take the time to put in the data, but for us to say, oh, well, let's somehow discount or bump up this particular sale because we think this one is a little off center and maybe not as nice as compared to this other sale, and try to normalize those, you just can't do it. So you're absolutely right. All of the cards really in the index are condition sensitive.
And theoretically we could do it. We just
if that was the only thing that we were going to be doing.
Right. Yep. But I mean, this doesn't surprise me. This is a card that I think is finally getting the appreciation in the hobby that it deserves. It's a great card, great great player, all those things. Johnny Bench is still alive, right? So there's a lot of things going well for this card and making it, I think, that new normal of $400 to $500 feels more appropriate for this card in a 6.
Yeah. Makes me really, really regret it was either PSA 6, 5 or 6 that I sold about 10, 15 years ago.
Probably for like $100. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We got to get through these. Let's keep going.
Yep. All right. So number 9, we have the tops, 78 tops, Molitor Trammell, population just over 1,800. Year to date, pretty much even, but technically down 0.8%. And the reason why I bring that, you'll see with the other data here, technically down a little bit for year to date. Since January, really hasn't really moved much. We're talking 30% increase. This is one of those late 70s cards. It's 2 Hall of Famers, but because of the population out there, it's just a newer card. You're not going to get that much swings. So it's a fairly stable, even though the graph shows a little bit of general increase there. So number 8's the Schmidt rookie, 1,900 population there in a PSA 7. Year to date, down 10%, but since January, it's pretty much doubled in price. Again, some of that could be affected by the condition of the particular examples that we charted there.
I think this is one of those, again, kind of underrated rookie cards. And it
Yeah.
obviously a lot has to do with people hate multiplayer rookie cards a lot of times.
Yeah.
I personally don't mind them. That's what they made. It is what it is, kind of thing. For this card to still be around $400 is surprising to me. I would
Yeah.
think it's a $500 to $600 card, but what do I know? I don't know anything about cards. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Number 7, Corey Yastrzemski rookie from 1960. Population just over 2,000. Again, in A6 has been down 13% for the year, but since the beginning of beginning of 2019, up over 175%. Again, this one is condition sensitive. When I was looking to pick up my 60 Yaz rookie, this one is known for one, off centering, but two, the black ink splotches just down there near the
Marks. Yeah.
name, near the six. I think that the black, whatever the black ink, just had a tendency of running or smudging. And to find a nice clean copy, that could be making the difference with some of these sales.
I love that he's listed as a second baseman on this card.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You mentioned about the Johnny Bench rookie. We had the 68 Nolan Ryan rookie. Population over 2,100. Year to date, down 19%, but since the beginning of 19, up almost 170%. Again, this one shows up often on my top 10 eBay sales and stuff like that. And yeah, the centering, and it's usually left to right. Whatever reason for this card where it was placed on the sheet, I don't know, but you rarely see one off center, top to bottom. It's left to right, and that could make a difference. Number 5, where you're going to notice here because of the pop, you're going to see a lot of 70s here cards, but the 79 Topps Ozzie Smith rookie, almost 2,300 pop in a PSA 7, down almost 16%. And just like the modular Trammel, not much increase or change in price since the beginning of 19, just 37% increase. It's held pretty stable. Number 4, the 78 Eddie Murray, over 2,500 in the population for a PSA 7. You see that one little spike there. An oddity, I'm not sure. It may have been a buy it now or something. I didn't go back and check that specific sale, but there's, other than that, one big spike. Year to date, down 29%, but from the beginning of 19, almost double in price. But if you're noticing, we're at number 4 here. If you're noticing a trend, year to date, they're all down slightly.
Totally going to say that. Every card, all the quote unquote high pop cards from this index are all down year to date.
Yep.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's another one.
Yes, another one. The 79 Robin Yount rookie.
Or the 75.
Almost 2,900 in the pop, down 30%, but overall, doubling in price. Again, it's slow and steady. Robin Yount rookie, popular 75 set. It's expected to slowly over time go up. You get your fluctuations month by month, and that could come down to condition. 75s tend to have that, diamond centering or whatever. But yeah, for the year to date, again, high, and these are the cards again with the high pop. Every time we update the data, there's at least 1, 2, 3, or even more sales for that month. So these cards, there's a lot of volume, relatively speaking, for these cards, and yet we're seeing this slightly downward trend year to date.
It's fascinating that you can buy a 75 Topps Robin Yount in a PSA 7 for like $125. That just feels cheap to me, but
I know. And then you get to the next one, which is the Brett, down 30%. Not quite doubled since 2019. And there's that one huge huge spike there. Again, who knows? It may have been a buy it now, and someone, again, getting into the whole hype may have overpaid for some. I don't know, but not if you take that one spike out. Again, it hasn't even quite doubled in price from 2019. Slow and steady for the George Brett rookie card. Population about 3,200. Then the big boy. Got the 1980 tops, Ricky Henderson rookie, almost 11,000 in a PSA 8. And trend continues. All 10 are down. The Henderson's down about 8%. I mean, not that much of a change, but technically all down. But this one, the Henderson, really, I think this was the largest card of the top 10 in terms of jump or appreciation. Up 237% since the beginning of 2019. So that one, again, saw that big run up. Well, not a big run up, but a run up in the beginning of 2021, has slowly gone down overall since then, but still a lot higher than it was, say, in very early 2020.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, just another look. Who knows? Maybe next month I may take a look at the 10 smallest pop cards. Again, those graphs you're not going to see. You're going to see a lot of straight lines, and maybe here's one sale and another sale, and that's how it is. I'm facing the same thing with my 1978 Hall of Fame run. There's a Bob Lemon manager card. I don't know what the pop is, but it's so low. I rarely see it. And when I do, they want like $200 for a PSA 8 of a Bob Lemon manager. I'm like, no, but if I really wanted it, that's the going rate. And if I were to pay that, that would show up on the sale as $200. Oh, look at, yeah. So, pop does definitely have a major impact on some of these cards that you may not see a sale for 2 years for a particular grade. But when one comes up, there's a lot of people that, oh my gosh, I've been waiting 2 years for this. And they go after it.
Yeah, in my trend of buying, it's been, for 70s cards, I've always tried to get 7s or 8s, certainly in the mid 70s. Can't do that really for 71.
Yeah.
But for the other, 75 and after, long ago, that was my goal. They all dried up. Now you hardly see them. I mean, I'm looking for different cards that, a team card with Sparky Anderson on it or something kind of weird and different. And so even on the mainstream player cards, I'm like, okay, I'll take a 6. I'm just, because that's what I can find. And, I probably should be more patient, quite frankly. Yeah. But the reality is, okay, I'll spend $15 on a 6 and a 7's 50. I'm like, okay, I'll take the 6 for 15 kind of thing. There's huge discrepancies in prices among those upper grades for those 70s cards, especially. You notice it too, I'm sure. And I'm proud of you for not compromising your desire to get a certain kind of card. I just have so many that I'm like, okay.
I know. Yeah. Well, it may come down to if PSA, and I saw you were talking about, I'll give credit to Ty, what he thought of maybe PSA and, the grading price for people with the registry. I'm not quite at 500 yet. So maybe Ty can suggest maybe a little bit lower threshold for some of those specials, but I'm not above, trying like say that Bob Lemon, finding a nice, decent raw copy, sending it in. And hey, even if it gets a 7, at least and not have to wait for forever to find a graded copy of it, and just get one graded and boom, it goes into my collection. And again, never to be seen by anyone else. But
I did a 30 card submission under the $22, bulk submission. I've got another one ready to go. I just need to print out the form and send it. So I'm doing that with Jim Cott, Minnie Minoso, Gil Hodges, these newer guys, Ted Simmons, I'm just finding nice raw copies. And because if it grades what I think it will grade, then I win, because at $22, a lot of these you can't find in the grade you want.
Find them.
Right. So even if they're not really expensive cards, they're just not out there. They're just not there.
Yep.
Or they're not for sale is probably the best way to say it.
Yes, they are already in the registries of other people on the list there. Not that I'm competing for position or want to get the highest, but it's just fun to try to complete one of the registry sets of Hall of Famers. That's really just the completion.
It's more
the ranking doesn't
completion.
really.
I totally agree. More completion. It's more about completion than grade point average, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, which is why I've okay, I'll take a 6. I'm not trying to be number 1 here or anything on anything, any given set, but well, good stuff, John. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and we're right around that half hour, which I wanted to try to keep it there. So great discussion, Mike. We'll throw around some other ideas for how we can look at next month's data. But hey, for those of you watching, would love your comments, thoughts, feedback, suggestions on this 100 vintage index that we're doing here. So with that, that's all we have. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.